I spent all of 2024 running my hair sprinkles services exclusively as a pop up. Let me tell you how this transformed my business and all of the different things that I learned. Look like the light has joined us. Hey y'all, Happy New Year. Hey y'all, Amber Mimz here, creator and founder of Hair Sprinkles, and I teach creatives and hairstylists how to create long-lasting, non-damaging hair sprinkles installations on all lock styles and protective styles, and I teach them how to get money doing it too. So before we dive into the transformation, we got to get into the why. And for me, my big why was I was working 4 to 5 days a week. I felt like I was chasing clients. I was spending so much money on overhead. Um, I previously, I want to say around like 2022 was the first time I got my sister and I got our own commercial lease together. But prior to that, I was spending money in commission and booth rent on a monthly basis, and then obviously grew to a place where I could afford a commercial lease. But by that time, I was spending so much money in overhead that it was just time to make a change. I was working sun up to sundown. I felt like I was not having enough time to really pour into the educational aspect of my business. I wanted to create more content, more intentional content, more knowledge based content so that I could grow that aspect of my business because I didn't want to be behind the chair for forever. It's never been my goal to be um, working doing hair sprinkles on my feet for the rest of my life. So I knew I had to do something different in order to reach my long-term goals. So switching my model from offering services the same way that I had been doing them for years was a change that needed to happen. And I'm not gonna lie, I was scared, but now that I'm on the other side of it, I feel like I'm just ready to share all of the different things that I learned and how that transformed my business. Now, the shift itself, or the pivot itself, or the idea of it, um, is something that is not just this idea, you have to execute it. And for me, execution comes in planning. So at the time, I was working with my assistant, and we literally took about a week or two to really kind of flesh out what this particular type of pivot could look like. I wanted to figure out how this was going to work, what spaces was I going to work in if I wasn't going to have my own space that I had for years and years, or just a consistent space that I knew that I was going to be going to and that clients could reach me on a regular basis. That was another thing. How is this going to change with my clientele? The fear set in of, oh my gosh, are people going to stop coming to me? I had so many different reservations, so many doubts, but being able to sit down and kind of like flesh out everything really made a huge difference. These are the different types of things that I kind of planned. So, in that planning process of what this pivot could look like, I thought about what kinds of brands I wanted to collaborate with, what kinds of small businesses I wanted to connect with. What does a pop up model for hair sprinkles feel like? What does that look like? Who am I, or what spaces am I wanting to be in that are aesthetically aligned with me, with my brand, with my clientele? I started to make a list of the different types of collaborators I wanted to work with, because this model was definitely going to be a collaboration of sorts, whether it was spaces that I was going to be popping up in, whether it was going to be the different brands that might sponsor those different types of pop ups. All of those things required a certain level of collaboration that I hadn't done a whole lot of, but wanted to do more of. So I started to make a list of those different types of places, those different types of brands and people. And I started doing my research and I started reaching out. And I started right where I am. I started with my immediate network as opposed to feeling like I needed to, reach for people that I'd never had conversations with before. How about talking to the people that are right around you that you are in alignment with already? So as I started to make those different lists, go through that plan with my assistant at the time, and start to put that work in, believe it or not, a lot of things started to come to me. They say when you make room, those things will come to you, and that's so true for how this kind of this new way of me operating really started to unfold. I early on started to get connected with different brands that were in alignment with me. I did my first pop up at a department store. I did pop ups at different little like cute spots throughout the city in Washington, D.C. And I feel like if I hadn't have done those things, I definitely wouldn't have expanded my audience in a certain way. There are people from those pop ups that are now consistent clients of mine that wouldn't have happened if I'd have just, kind of stepped out on a limb and stayed focused on what I wanted to see. Another thing that I did within this pivot, within that shift, was learning the difference between social media and email marketing. I definitely relied on social media more when I was working more hours, more days, because I felt like I needed to have that turnaround of new clients on a more regular basis. Whereas I was not taking advantage of my email marketing as much as I should have. I had a client list and I have their emails, but I'm not nurturing them as much as I should. So when I switched to my pop up model, I really started to email them more than I did in the past. And those emails really helped because it allowed them to know first when they could receive services. I was letting them know what was new, what was available, what was coming down the pipeline. I was letting them know even like scheduling differences, keeping them abrupt of my changes, and developing that relationship and consistency allowed for them to be more consistent because I was being more consistent with them. And I noticed that when I was kind of just posting, or relying so much on social media, I may have gotten new people, but it wasn't allowing me to really scale. Whereas nurturing my email marketing, my clients, my existing clients, it allowed me to nurture those clients so much more. So now they're more consistent. They're also wanting to come more often. They're also not afraid to spend a little bit more on those services that they want because the window was a little bit tighter in terms of my availability. So that shift for me just really kind of changed how I was doing business. Now let's get into how this actually like transformed my business. I'm a year out of it now, 12 months in of strictly operating as a pop-up. Now we can kind of talk about the transformation that I've seen, and it's not anything I think I could have planned. First things first, it gave me the opportunity to be more intentional with my services so that I could create services that were available to the sliding scale of clients. So maybe I have services that are offered for people who want to do more luxury adornments and things that might take longer and also cost more. But now I also have different services that might not take as long and might not cost as much. So now we have a a sliding scale, but there is a minimum. So I got really intentional about what do I want my minimum to be in this capacity, and got not afraid about being able to offer higher tier options for everybody. The other thing that changed tremendously too is I had more space to create. I didn't even think about it until after the fact, but you know how you can continue to do things almost in a routine like matter. It's not like you don't like what you're doing. It's just that, maybe you don't have the space and the time more than anything to really kind of stretch out. So, working from this pop up model gave me the time, even outside of actually working with clients, but like during the week on other days, getting inspired, wanting to experiment in a different way, whether it's playing around with different placements, playing around with different adornment types, playing around with different hair types, even down to the different type of content that I wanted to create. So the way that I'm engaging with you all, the way that I'm shooting the finishing products, getting into what, different types of sounds and aesthetics that I want to create, what kind of editing I want these different pieces of content to look like. All of that opened up a completely different way of me being able to create. Now, the biggest transformation is my overhead. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, to be honest with you. My overhead change is extreme. I went from spending $2,000 to $2,500 a month just on rent, just on like where I am, utility bills, things of that nature, to spending literally less than $500, oftentimes less than $400 a month to be able to offer services in a space. That is a fraction of what I was used to spending on a monthly basis. And I'm not adding in, like, the cost of subscriptions for Zoom and all of these different things that, we all subscribe to as small business owners. That 2,500 was just to be able to go in and turn the key and be able to operate and make sure the heat was on, the water was on, all of that type of stuff. So that was the biggest transformation in my business for sure. And then what I was able to do with that money was to be able to invest in my business. This was the first year that I've been able to really dig more into education for myself. I've been able to work with coaches that I've been dying to work with for years because I knew that their information, even just the free bits of information I was able to get from them online, YouTube, social media, whatever, was already helping my business grow. So I knew if I was able to make those investments with them, I would really be able to see a tremendous change in my business, especially from an online perspective. I got the opportunity to start investing more in ads and marketing and learning so much more about that aspect to be able to become more visible, to be able to reach more people, because there have been moments where I felt like I've reached a glass ceiling in some ways, but I really haven't. There's so many people who don't know about me, who don't know about hair sprinkles, and it's really all about perspective. And it was a perspective that I didn't have. But now that I have the money to invest and learn more, I've been able to take that information and grow my business in a different way. Another thing that has helped to transform my business is the opportunity to travel for my business. I'd done pop ups in other cities before, but this year I was able to do pop ups in other locations. But not only that, I've been able to travel to actually purchase materials, to be able to invest in quality materials. So that opened up the luxury adornment space for me in a capacity that I hadn't been able to invest in a real way before. I, kind of dipped my pinky toe in there, but now I'm swimming in it, and I can, I've really created these relationships where I have access to luxury adornments. And it took me traveling to be able to do that. Another thing in terms of travel is being able to be in spaces that sometimes the internet just doesn't allow for you to be as present in. So I've attended my first Creators Summit this year. I've been able to just go to different spaces and meet different people and network in different capacity that before, because of the overhead and the time, I either didn't have the money, didn't have the time, and then when I did have the time, I didn't really feel like it because I was so burnt out. So the way that this whole new mindset really changed the way that I operate my business, I don't think that I would have been able to see it if I would have just stuck with doing business services specifically, if I would have kept operating at that same capacity. I definitely experienced burnout before operating in this model, but from a mental standpoint, I have been able to pour into myself in a way that I didn't really give myself time to do, which in turn has allowed me to be has allowed me to be more creative, has allowed me to be more confident in what I know, and the education that I've been able to develop and pass on. It's allowed me to expand my business, even in the educational aspect of it. I'm now in a position where I'm developing a subscription side of my workshops because I have live content that I now offer to them, more educational support that I've been able to offer because I am becoming more educated as well. So it just has expanded the gambit for real. So, the things that I've been able to learn from this transformation for sure have been to stay focused and stay the course. Even when it gets hard, even when the negative thoughts start to kind of get into your mind about what you can and can't do, You got to stay focused on the bigger picture and give things time. Be patient. Don't be ready to just like give up on whatever you feel is important for you in this season because you don't see the results happening in a quick fashion. Give yourself time to be able to meet those goals, or at least to start to see the changes that can help get you to the goals or the results that you want to achieve. This year really affirmed that your clients and your customers are in alignment with you. Whatever you set out to offer, be it your skill set, the service that you provide, the knowledge that you provide, the space that you provide, the comfort, the customer service, all of those things are why people come to you. And those clients who respect and value those things are going to be in alignment with you, and they're going to show up and they're going to be consistent and they're going to pay your rate and they're going to pay with tax and add tip. Okay. So I was so blessed to be affirmed in that. I think that, there was a moment where I felt like, oh man, if I switch this up, people are going to stop coming to me. Maybe a few, but that means that they're not in alignment with you in this season of where your business is going, and they won't be able to experience that. And that's okay. But those who are will fill those gaps as well. Overall, it's really a change of mindset, not being afraid of getting rid of what's not working anymore to be able to attract what does work, having more patience with myself, not falling into the cycle of burnout just because you think that that's how it's supposed to work. You think you're supposed to have this hard, labor intensive type of experience. It does not have to be that in order for you to be able to make a living and create a source of sustainable income for yourself. I actually found this year working less, I've made more. There was a time when my minimum was like, I need to be able to make my rent. And my rent was probably at the time, maybe like $1,000. So I was giving myself, I need to be able to make at least $1,200, $1,300 minimum so I can take care of my rent and a couple of other expenses. But in this last year alone, that this new model has allowed me to make that much in a day. So it's really a shift in mindset more than anything, giving yourself some patience, staying focused on what you feel is the bigger picture for your goals, not just thinking short term. So if all of this information has been helpful, I hope that you continue to follow this whole hair sprinkles experience, be it here on YouTube or on Instagram. And if you're interested in learning how to offer safe, non-damaging, long-lasting hair sprinkles installations, then head on over to hairsprinkles.com/workshops and enroll in our workshops. And Hair Sprinkles 101 is where you get started. So I hope to see you guys soon, and Happy New Year! Peace.